morning. My name is Mark Madrian. I'm as I said, managing director with Ceteris, and is it the? Here we go. Ceteris is a global transfer pricing and business valuation firm. My mom wants to know what I do for a living. I'm almost embarrassed to tell her. I don't know if any of you saw this article that came out in Bloomberg last week about Google's effective tax rate being at 2.4%. Our firm works with companies like Google to help them set up their international structures. It's very important that you get your taxable income in the lowest taxing jurisdiction possible. The law allows us to do that, and so we're happy to play with the rules that we're dealt. We work with multinational firms all over the world, addressing issues of intellectual property, taxation, business valuation, and some of those different things that are very important issues. Oftentimes the marketing guys will come in and they're very excited to go global. Sometimes we're the conscience and we'll come in and say, well, that's nice. However, before you start moving intellectual property into China or wherever it might be, we need to talk about what those issues mean from both the tax and the legal perspective. And so we work here locally. We have a small office in Salt Lake, but I actually do a lot of work with local companies, work with some of our law firms here in town. We got great legal resources. We're happy to have you come in, but we've got some good people here, so and hopefully you'll bring some great people along to supplement that. And so we've got some really good resources that can assist you as you decide to go global and work in various markets. One of the things, this is just a selection of our clients, is here in Utah, and do a lot of work with Stampin' Up! And Zango and some others, but that's just a partial listing of some of the companies we work with globally as a firm. These are some of the law firms. Love to add your law firm up there, hopefully in the future. But what I like to talk about, what I'm often asked as I go out, in fact, I was just with a local company yesterday, a healthcare company here in Utah, and they have operations in China. And their question to me is always, what in the world is going on in the global tax environment right now? We're very concerned about making sure that we're not overpaying our taxes. We're very concerned that we're complying with the various rules and guidelines. And so what I like to do is just take a couple of minutes and give you a real quick overview of what's going on. We just had a big election this week, and that election has some serious implications for U.S. multinational companies. The Obama administration came out earlier this year. They are looking for income, for revenue. And that revenue, they have pinpointed, is on international transactions. That's where all the money is. There's not a lot of money left here domestically. And so what we're seeing is the IRS is aggressively hiring tax professionals, over 300 or 400 people in the last year, to focus on international examinations. And what that means for you as a small company or even a growing company is that they are going to start looking at what you're doing from a global perspective. And the areas that they're focused in for my technology and healthcare friends is intellectual property. Again, that's where all the money is. And so as you start to go international, if you have intellectual property and you want to move that IP offshore, you want to start entering into licensing transactions, they are going to scrutinize those in a way that we've never seen in the history of the IRS. Because so many companies, including Google, Microsoft, you go down the list, have been able to shelter billions of dollars offshore in taxable income that would have otherwise been taxed here in the U.S. And so the Obama administration, despite the changes that are happening this week, because there is some consensus, even on the Republican side of the aisle, that they need to go back and look at some of these definitions of intellectual property. They need to carefully go back and consider what is IP and is it taxable, and if so, how do we go about doing that? And so I think you're going to see a number of proposals come out in the next year as they start to expand these powers to go after these types of transactions and try to bring that income back into the United States. From a global perspective, we see the same thing going on overseas. The OECD, which is the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, has established what they call their best practices around transfer pricing and international taxation. Well, they just issued brand new transfer pricing guidelines in the last 4 months. And again, those guidelines have become very aggressive at going after companies like yourselves who are wanting to engage in international business and looking to move profits from high tax jurisdictions into low tax jurisdictions. And so what we see then is as the OECD changes their rules, we look at countries like Mexico who continue, and a lot of my clients here in Utah do a lot of work in Mexico. It's a great place for direct marketers to go. Mexico is very aggressive. If you're a U.S. company, I promise you, or bet you my $2 that you will be audited within the year that you move down there. And they will look to see what you're doing from a transaction perspective. And so it's very important that you work with your outside advisors to make sure that you're in compliance with those local country rules. We see the same thing going on in Canada. Canada, if you're a U.S. company, again, the perception is that you have a lot of money. And so the Canadian tax authorities, again, are looking at U.S. multinationals doing business in Canada very aggressively. and trying to identify where income should be brought back into the country. I'm working with a construction company on Tuesday based out of Denver, and they have intercompany loans that they haven't been managing appropriately. And to the Canadian tax authorities, it looks like equity. And so now they're coming after them for probably about $10, $15 million of taxable income. And so again, it's because of sloppy record keeping. They didn't bring their lawyers in, and they didn't get these transactions put in properly. And that's what I preach to my clients here locally and internationally. You can't be sloppy when you go international, because they will come and find you, and the cost can be very excessive. Finally, an area that gets a lot of attention right now is China. China continues to be very aggressive with U.S. multinational companies. The rules are changing almost on a weekly basis there. And so again, as you look to go into markets like China or India that are developing, you need to make sure you consult with an outside advisor to know exactly what's going on in those countries, to make sure you're complying. From an intellectual property perspective, I see all kinds of problems in China. With another client here in Utah, their intellectual property went in one door and it went out the other door. They thought that they had protections, but they didn't understand that Chinese law is very different, and they look at things very differently than they do here in the U.S. It's a right to first to file versus first to use. And so again, as you go into these countries, I want to encourage you to reach out to resources that are sitting around this table, that are here in this town, that can help you, because the pain can be very very difficult on the back end when these things start to blow up on you. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak and answer some of your questions. Thanks.